talking of Bazball and Brendon McCullum, you obviously played a lot with him. You know him really well. Were you surprised when he was appointed as the England Test coach? Because we were all pretty shocked when he accepted the whiteball gig as well from next month onwards. But when he was appointed Test coach, were you surprised and or excited?
I wouldn't say I was surprised, but I was probably more surprised from the English side, to be fair, because cricket in England generally is really traditional, and the way Baz conservative, and the way Baz captained, at least when he was playing, wasn't the conservative type. So that was the thing that surprised me, the fact that I genuinely thought he could do it really well. Whether or not it was the right time for him, I had no idea either, but I think, speaking to him in recent times, it was actually the perfect time for him to take over. The team wasn't going overly well, and a fresh idea came in, and all of a sudden the results started turning around. So it was almost a perfect storm there. But having known Baz for a little while now, he never backs down to a challenge, and he attacks it with positivity, and he tries to make the people that he brings in or brings into the environment, he tries to make them feel as comfortable as possible and that they can feel themselves.
There are lots of Englishmen who follow the game and have followed the game for many years and decades who didn't get it at all, who didn't understand, just had no idea, particularly when he used to say that winning and losing is not the be-all and end-all. There were some English supporters who were choking on whatever they were eating and drinking when they heard that for the first time. I think they are slowly coming around to what he's trying to achieve, but none of that would have come as a surprise to you at all.
No, definitely not, and especially after the World Cup, the one-day World Cup here in Australia and New Zealand. New Zealand's a tricky place to play with, especially when the media's against the side. It's very tall poppy, and at that point of time, New Zealand wasn't going that well with the cricket, and his whole demeanour with the media was to try and get them on side for that World Cup, and he went out of his way to ring reporters and get reporters almost envisaging what he was envisaging, so that then they'd start writing, I guess, positive stories about the team. And he knew that it would give his team confidence if the whole of New Zealand got behind it. And being here in New Zealand during that World Cup, I haven't seen anything like it. Like the way the country got behind the Blackcaps during that period of time was amazing, and it was really great for the sport here, and it was all on the back of Brendon realising that and doing something about it, I guess, and that's the one point that I want to make about him is he's not scared to go out there and try and do something, even if it might fail. He would rather go out there and go, well, at least I gave that a crack, rather than not thought at all.
He's credited with, not single-handedly, because that would be impossible, but rebuilding New Zealand cricket, and not just Test cricket. They reached a nadir, an all-time low, I think, barring the very first few years of Test cricket, when they were bowled out for 43 by South Africa, by Vernon Philander, who took 5 for 5, I think, at Newlands in Cape Town. And I obviously wasn't there, but I heard from a number of players that he said to the team, remember this moment, remember it, because we're going to build upwards and we're going to play in a different way, in a different and he did it. I mean, is it unfair to say, use the words like, phrases like single-handedly, but he was the absolute leader, wasn't he? I mean, he was appointed rather awkwardly ahead of Ross Taylor. I think probably many people felt at the time unfairly, but it turned out to be an inspired choice.
Yeah, it was. I think it was Brendon leading it, but he had a couple of really good people alongside him, and Mike Sandel, the Blackcaps manager, who other than Brendon McCullum, you'd argue was the next most important person in that cog at that particular time. They lost him there for a period of time. He went back to rugby and did a job there, but I noticed that he's come back to the Blackcaps environment, and he had the right people there. He had Mike Hesson there, who needed a little bit of guidance himself at that period of time of his coaching career, and I don't think he'll mind me saying this. Brendon was the person that he he probably knew the best and trusted the most. And you know, if you go a little bit deeper into that whole captaincy thing, then you know, it was probably, I don't know whether the order of captains was right, but maybe Brendon should have done it before Ross, and it should have gone from Brendon to Ross to Kane. But you know, that's history now, and you know what Brendon did during that particular time in terms of just creating. The good thing that he does is he creates a vision for people to buy into, and it's an amazing thing that he does. It's, you know, and unless you've been a part of it, it's hard to explain. Like he's someone that you just want to follow, and you can't quite ever work out why, but he's just someone that you want to be around and you want to follow.
He's intensely loyal as well to anybody that I guess, choosing my words carefully, deserves it, his loyalty. I know that he looked after, you played franchise cricket under him, didn't you? Was it PSL, Pakistan Super League? You also played, we mentioned this on commentary, in the Afghan Premier League and a couple of other franchise tournaments. But before we move on to talk about the future of franchise tournaments, and I am very keen to get your thoughts on the way you think that might shape up in the years and decades to come. But talk a little bit more about Brendon and his coaching career, his philosophy, and how he's pretty much loved everywhere, isn't he? But you have to go a long way to find somebody who's got a bad word to say, or he let us down. You're not going to find that.
No, when I found out I was going to do this lunchtime show, the first three words I wrote down were his generosity, his caring nature, and the perspective he brings to everyday life. He's the most selfless bloke you could imagine. He'll always make sure you're sorted before he's sorted, you know, and I guess that's part of the reason why you want to follow him so much. Maybe you feel like you owe him something. Maybe he's deep down just planting a few seeds, and that's his way of getting people to follow him. But those are the three words that I wrote down, and I've seen that firsthand, and he's looked after me, particularly during my early days of franchise cricket. He made sure I was all sorted and wasn't worrying about the things that I shouldn't have been worrying about, and just allowed me to go out and focus of, you know, trying to make a career out of franchise cricket.
How would you sum up the people you know? So I won't say how does New Zealand feel, but the cricket people that you know in New Zealand, is there a sort of slightly wistful regret that he's not doing for England, not doing for New Zealand what he's doing for England?
I don't think so. I think the public and cricketing public know that things potentially might need to change a little bit before the likes of Brendon and Stephen Fleming and Daniel Vittori come back, and these are guys that are trying to look after their families and all that sort of stuff, and there's no doubt, you know, Brendon has got ties and loyalties to New Zealand, and he does things in his own right. You know, when it comes to that, I saw the other day he presented the caps for this Test match because it was Tim Southee's last game, and you know, you wouldn't, as a Kiwi, you wouldn't expect that coming from the English coach. But you know, although he's not working for New Zealand, he's still got his ties. His son plays here in New Zealand, and he's still interested in the first class scene and what's coming through. But at this point in time, he's fully dedicated to England, and every time I see him, I see it more and more, and it's really exciting. It's as a professional sportsman, especially one who's played a little bit of franchise cricket, it's sort of one of those things where no matter what jersey you've got on, whether it's an English team or an Australian team, or you give everything you've got to that team for that period of time, and there's nothing else that matters. So he falls into that one.
He never said that he wanted to change Test cricket. He would never. I don't think the personality would never allow him to say that. But many or several of his players, of the players who played for England, have said that, and there's been a kind of kickback and particularly from the Aussies. Interestingly, you know, they said, "Well, we were scoring at 4 and over 20 years ago, pal." But in terms of legacy. And I say this as somebody who covered the first Test match in 1987. I've never seen the game change so much. I don't think that colleagues have written books about Bazball and the change in Test cricket. We saw just a couple of months ago, 3 days were lost to rain in a Test match between India and Bangladesh, and India did something they have never ever done in their history before. They went out and they broke the scoring record, scored at 8 and over, and beat Bangladesh in 2 days. Teams around the world are, they might not all be admitting it, but they are using this English team as the standard bearer. As Brendon spoke about the need to entertain. We're in the entertainment business. You know, we're not playing for ourselves. We're playing for the people who've paid money. And so in terms of legacy, I can only imagine how he'll be remembered whenever he finishes. How long do you think it'll be? But anyway, in 10 years' time, 15, 20 years' time, people will say that was when Test cricket changed and he was the man that did it.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. Like, Test cricket particularly went through a bit of a phase where, you know, maybe the generation that grew up watching Test cricket were starting to stop watching, and I think Brendon's smart enough man and knows enough about world cricket to know that, especially over in England, that it's a large proportion of the money is from Test cricket. So for him to want to revive it and get people back into the grandstands and getting young kids wanting to play it, I don't know if he'll ever get the thanks that he might deserve. I don't even know if he needs any of that, but he definitely thinks about things a lot more than what people think. Like, he comes across as a pretty laid-back guy and all this sort of stuff, but you know, when he's at home and he's having a quiet beer or something like that, he's a deep thinker of the game, and that doesn't always get seen when he's on, you know, in the camera or out addressing his team or things like that.
I remember going to watch a Test match or going to watch nets before a Test match, and you know, there was this austere feeling that many teams had. You know, they always wore the blazers and they tied the number ones on the first day. And it's more like going to chapel. In fact, it was like going to the cathedral. You know, you didn't speak unless you were spoken to, and there was just this austerity. And now you, well, the England team prepare on the golf course as much as they do in the nets. But when they do have nets, and I'm not being facetious. I mean, when they have nets, they do it short but intense. Really intense, but they'll have music playing. It'll be fun. He wants being involved in the Test team to be fun, and there have been players. I know there have been many players who have not enjoyed their Test careers because of that sort of, you know, you've reached the pinnacle now, and this is what Test cricketers do. This is how they behave. This is how they bat. This is how they play the game. You know, the captain's duty is to make 100% certain he cannot lose the Test match before he considers winning it. All of those things have just been junked. And it came as a bit of a shock to people. I think it's glorious.
Yeah, well, I think it's not like your normal 9-to-5 job, is it? You know, where you can go home and forget about your performance for the day, especially if you work for someone else. If you own your own business, different story. But you know, quite often these cricketers that have failed, I think of Zach Crawley this series here. Yeah, he's hasn't probably played as well as what he would have liked in the first 2.5 tests. But you know, what's he going home to do? He's not going home to his hotel to beat himself up for the whole afternoon or the whole evening and waking up the next morning feeling bad. He's going to go out. He's going to, whether it be play golf or go have a nice dinner somewhere, he's going to go out and enjoy his life. And it's a funny old thing, you know. You can beat yourself up more in your hotel room than what you do generally at the ground, but that's what they're trying to get away from. They're just trying to get guys to enjoy what they do, and you know, it's going to work sometimes, and that's the loyalty factor. We trust you. You know, it'll turn around at some stage, and we will get the best out of you, and you'll enjoy it when it happens.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app, and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.